If Pokemon games don't always include every Pokemon from previous games, what does that mean for our dream teams we want to use for battling? Hey everyone, this is going to be a shorter video. Also, because it's December, my team is busy getting ready for the holidays, so we'll take a little break from longer videos and come back in January with a big episode. For this one, I just want to expand on a detail I introduced in the previous episode, Professors and the Pokédex, with a mechanical feature that the narrative I introduced allows for. I'll break this down into the development side of things, then the narrative, and then finish with gameplay. First, a little recap. I presented the idea of a Pokemon University to act as the beating heart of Pokemon's overall world building, a concept that the sequels and online content could anchor and revolve around. With the player having a Pokemon University account, it keeps all their Pokemon in one place, just like the Pokemon Home or Bank system, but with an added element of holding their Pokédex entries as well. Linking to your account in each new generation would update details to the game. This allows for things like already having a Pokédex entry on a Pokemon you caught in a previous game, and the local professor making reference to you, the player, separate from the protagonist, as the head of research. With all that in mind, there are some details that could be explored a little further. Specifically, I think it could address one particular issue, having the need to have all the Pokemon from the previous games into the new ones. Obviously, Game Freak can't have all the Pokemon in every new game forever. We hit that problem for the first time in Pokemon Sword and Shield. It was bound to happen eventually. Yes, they make billions of dollars and are capable of having all the Pokemon in all generations, but every time the roster is expanded with new Pokemon, it adds to the compounding work of making sure that it is all functional and completely balanced. Not to mention the new, fully animated Pokemon and flashy moves that start to look very outdated over time. If you want to make new Pokemon more lively than previous work, then you need to update all of them so that the old ones don't look stiff in comparison. So instead of moping about the problem, let's utilize world building to rescue the narrative side of this dilemma. We can use this Pokemon University concept to support these limitations by the university saying that you are not allowed to introduce a Pokemon from a previous generation to a foreign environment that is not appropriate for them. Even if an environment suits a Pokemon perfectly, that environment still isn't fit to have them unbalance its ecosystem. So there you go. Simple. Done. Any Pokemon not included is now easily hand-waved away. There could even be some comical and interesting world-building explanations attached to any particular Pokemon about any future generation they weren't invited to. However, dear viewer, you may have noticed an obvious flaw in my suggestion of having Pokemon excluded from advancing generations, just as I noted at the start of this video. If you are a very competitive player, you might be thinking, but Damon, how am I supposed to put together my perfect team and battle my friends? And I'm sorry to say that you won't be doing that in these games. Because you'll be doing it in another game. One that is separate from the mainline series but working in tandem with the University account. A game specifically designed for you to be able to put together any team you want, drawn from any generation you want. A game purely to battle other players. It wouldn't need to use up memory by having an environment to explore or a story to tell. It would just be the Pokemon University Battlegrounds. Downloadable content, DLC, can allow you to bring the Pokemon from the newest games in. Different battle modes could allow for different strategies or gimmicks like beauty competitions or Mega Evolutions. What if there were different modes like draft pick battles as seen in Hearthstone and others? None of this is to say that you won't have online battling available at all in a mainline Pokemon game. You would just be limited to what you can catch and trade inside that specific generation. As I said, this complementary game just fully accommodates cross-generational battles. I think the weakest part of the Pokemon Home or Bank system is that they are just glorified storage boxes and don't affect gameplay. I would hope that this University narrative and Battlegrounds game would help the players interact with their stored Pokemon again. In Sword and Shield, it was a brilliant idea to have Pokejobs for the Pokemon you're not using. What was stored away is almost forgettable, but now they have a renewed purpose. I want that same thing to happen to your poor forgotten Sandshrew left to collect dust in the bank. The best part about this Battlegrounds game is that you wouldn't have to trade between it and the bank system, because you can't catch anything new from it. It would just need an internet connection so the game can check your bank. Oh hey, I see you have these Pokemon with these stats. Want to use them? Doing battles could gain them experience, and even evolutions, but adding that would just mean sending an update to the bank. Let's say, however, that you could be rewarded Pokemon through winning a competition in the Battlegrounds. Again, that could just be sent directly to your university account. Perhaps this even addresses the problem of a number of Pokemon being left too many generations behind. If every game has Pokemon missing from the roster, with the occasional return of old ones, over time, many will get left in the distant past. What if, in the world map, Vulpix, or more specifically, Ninetales, could only be found in the rebooted and still Japanese-inspired Kanto-ish region, never making a return in later generations? This would make sense since that Pokemon is heavily based on ancient Japanese folklore. Well, what about new players joining much later? Wouldn't they have a hole in their international Pokédex? Yes, they would. However, the university battlegrounds, or even just the online environment of everyone's university accounts interacting, creates a community of traders and breeders. The entire collective of players would be encouraged to share their bounties. Heck, even scoring well in a competition might reward you with a rare Pokemon because you impressed it. Although it is well worth mentioning that there will always be games like Pokemon Go helping you fill in the gaps with abundance, so I really wouldn't worry about it. Okay, I'll address the Donphan in the room for those Pokemon players who might be familiar with a certain app, and may have been tapping their feet for a while at this idea of a Battlegrounds game. Pokemon Showdown is a free game made by fans where you can draft any Pokemon you want, give them the stats and abilities you want, and get them to battling a real person online, all within 5 minutes. If all you want is to battle people, you don't have to spend any money, or the dozens of hours it would take to breed and grind that perfect Pokemon into your team, or to do it 6 times over for that matter. Essentially, this game sets the standards for what the university battlegrounds should try to achieve. I think the best approach would be to streamline the process of setting up a team for battling, without having to needlessly grind. Shouldn't part of the competitive style gameplay be to get to the fun parts? I actually think it would be totally fine for Pokemon to have an official game with an equal level of accessibility to play. You can draft whatever you want, but perhaps the benefit to actually catching Pokemon for your university account could be that you get to customize and personalize your drafted team members. Otherwise, a Pokemon you don't actually own might just be gray shaded. However, one you caught is not only colored, but wears a cool hat too. A whole new reason to have a living Pokédex. Anyway, I'll be offering a suggestion to the design of Pokemon's battle mechanics in the next episode as an attempt to reduce that need to grind. As such, I'll end this one here. Thank you for watching. Like, hit the blossom, press on the subscribe button or you will make my Wooloo cry. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'll see you next time.